I remember saying to a group of students that sometime in the future, and probably in my lifetime, we will have 4-quarter football or soccer matches with unlimited substitutions, a stop clock for every time the ball went dead, and as well there would always be 11 players on the field for each team, no matter what the situation. Believe you me, this might have sounded like fantasy, but it isn't as far away as you might imagine. Will it be a good thing for football? As ever, only time will tell. The so-called football purist will tell you they don't want it. They'd rather see less than an hour of action in a 90-minute game with a significant part of the time taken up by time wasting and other activities. It hasn't quite happened yet, but with the recent purchase of Chelsea Football Club by the American consortium, it edges ever closer. Also, having still not recovered from the recent Manchester City defeat to Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final, where the referee blew for full time before the end of the added 3 minutes, I wondered whether indeed the Americanism of sport isn't such a bad thing, and maybe something we should embrace. After all, it's very successful. As ever, I got to thinking about it, and my blood pressure raised significantly at the thought of what might be coming. There are many things I like about North American sports, but there are also many things that just plain get on my nerves. This film will probably sound pretty anti-US, but as I said, this is a film about what frustrates me, and not some of what I really like about North America. If you are North American, then you could change some of the words in this film. When I say dislike, you say like. When I say hate, you say love, etc. Also, as ever, these are my personal views and maybe even a little tongue-in-cheek. Certainly no offence is meant to be caused. Here is what frustrates me about the majority of North American sports, and in no particular order, let's start with the commentators. Many are far too enthusiastic about everything they see. I don't mind the pre-scripted lines for amazing plays or anticipated records being broken, but not for every single second of the match or game. We also have commentators in some sports at live events. Come on, what's all that about? Tone it down, please, and let us watch the sport in peace without the constant drivel. Americans and their sports teams sell themselves as being good social institutions, pillars of the community. I always find it a little hypocritical that the clubs and leagues preach so much and then accept advertisements from companies promoting goods that we know are not good for us, and they are very quick to do a deal and expand the franchise overseas, even in a country that has a dubious reputation. And continuing down the politics route, US sport is entwined with politics. US presidents throw out the ceremonial first pitch to begin a Major League Baseball season. But the president throwing the first ball, they already have about half of the US population talking about something other than they should be at that moment. Sport is already so intertwined with politics. For example, the hosting of events, boycotting, sport washing, etc. We don't need any more of it rammed down our throats. Do we need so much Star-Spangled Banner? USA, do you have to make a film out of every story that happens in sport? I'm guessing 90% of Hollywood sports films are about US sport, and they always have a very predictable and successful ending. Additionally, the sports quote or motivational quote was something I really liked once. Now, thanks to you Americans, I detest them. One of the scarier things about US sport is that it is driving change around the world. More and more American owners and investment firms are seeing the financial reward and getting involved in worldwide sports, and this can only give rise to the potential of more change. Look at Formula One and its expansion of the race calendar. It seems to be an obsession that the sport must grow around the world and generate as much profit as possible. I wonder if they just see it as a business. Is all US sport completely driven by the dollar? Does every nickel and cent, euro, pound and yen have to be squeezed out to the fans? Ticket prices are not getting cheaper, and it's quite safe to say that a day out at a big US sports event with everything included, tickets, car parking, food, drink, some merchandising, is way out of reach of many in the world. That's if tickets are available and not swallowed up by the corporations to give as rewards for business deals to non-fans, who then spend much of the game making use of the hospitality and not even watching the sport. Hey, but on a positive note, at least the sporting stars and the owners are becoming very, very rich out of it. What about the American dream? There are kids all over the world, and certainly in the US, that are following their dream. They are told they can make it. They can be anything they want if they put their mind to it. The trouble is they listen to all of this and the media-managed players in their post-match media interviews, and they say the same politically correct thing every time. Also, the memoirs of the sportsperson wouldn't be complete unless they have followed their dream and achieved the impossible. Some of the sports that have a draft day or three and the selection of players by clubs that is determined by the team's finishing position in a league where you can't be relegated from is completely wrong for me. It's great if you're in it, but is it great for the entire sport? I'm not so sure. Remember, the proposed European Super League of football would see no promotion or relegation of teams. Games are too long. Well, to be exact, the game isn't too long, just the amount of time it takes to watch it. I've watched live basketball in the US and at their overseas matches in London. I've seen live American football matches and baseball games. The best way to describe them is there is occasionally a little sports action in between lots of stops for many different reasons. A typical NBA game lasts 2 to 2.5 hours, and that is for 48 minutes of game time. I know people who have fallen asleep at baseball games. Did you know that you get more TV coverage if you get an injury in a match than just, say, for instance, someone who scores a touchdown? I'm sure that many Americans don't want the excessive scrutinising of every piece of play to check every tiny thing is okay. Or there will be the threat of legal action and lawyers getting involved. Do the fans really want so many timeouts, intervals, 2-minute warnings? But for whatever the reason, the games are like that now. Have a look at the number of officials at a basketball game. What on earth are they all there for? One thing I would beg of the whole of the USA is to start calling things by their correct names. You know what I mean. It's football, not soccer. Your game of football is called American football, and to confuse it with football, that is a sport predominantly played with the feet, as opposed to American football, which is predominantly played with hands. Anyway, let's move on to cheating. By cheating, I mean the stuff behind the scenes. It's very difficult to get anything past all the officials on the game day. I know cheating happens all over sport, but the Americans, when they do it, they do it bigger. Drugs in sport, you had Lance and Balco. Remember Deflategate? Player payment at college level. The list could go on and on and on. The rewards are so great, and the chance of records and fame all force teams and athletes to look for any advantage they can. They push the boundaries of what is allowed and sometimes go too far. Does it have to be this way? Technology is everywhere in sport now. I presume the technology will ultimately get rid of officials, and we will then probably have to wait even longer for each decision to be made. Also, technology used in televised games is 100% off the scale. I'm sure there are some Americans that think football players or soccer players wear earpieces to receive instructions. Maybe help the goalie on the line in the penalty situation. Yardage, time, stats, assists, and some more stats. I want to watch the sport, not feel like I'm on a Wikipedia feed. It's not fair to the rest of the world that the US are so good at sport. The sports they are not good at is usually only because they don't really want to be. For example, if they put 100% into rugby union, for sure they would be champions very soon. As with many sports they are not associated with now. Look at the Olympic League tables, and it's difficult to argue that the USA are not very good at sport. The supporters officially annoy me. In the hole! Before the golf ball has even been hit. Face painting in support of a team that's only been established for a few years. Complete family and city allegiances to their teams. Craziness in the stadium. And after the game, hooping and hollering and making a lot of noise over nothing. Now, onto the All-Star Games. I don't mind the occasional charity match for a good cause, but to have an annual sycophantic event that serves nothing other than to generate cash is frustrating to say the least. To be fair, I hate the international break we have in football for friendly matches. When we play sport, it should be 100% full-on sport. Otherwise, let's not waste our time. Format of the competitions. Now, I don't mind a league or a knockout tournament, but playoffs, and not only playoffs, but multiple games within the playoffs, too, I can only assume ensure the bigger teams are less likely, to use an American phrase, be eliminated. Just get on with it. Everything doesn't need to take so long. Washing their laundry in public. Nothing in sport happens behind closed doors nowadays. And that is especially so in North America. Maybe that's a good thing, or not. I can't say for sure. One thing I know is that I want to know about the sport-related stuff. Who won, who lost, who scored, etc. I'm not in the slightest bit interested in who's dating who and the reason someone is leaving the team, the drugs they've taken, the person they've abused, the wrongful accusation they've received, the sexuality of a player, the animosity between players, how much someone earns or someone else earns. I'm really not at all interested. The USA is so litigious about anything. There has to be liability for anything that happens, for everything that happens. It clouds the whole of sport and is often the thing talked about the most. The threat of legal shadows over many of the sport's biggest questions and is often the reason for change that some say isn't for the better. One thing for sure, there is absolutely no need for the size of teams and squads. In the NFL, teams are permitted to carry a maximum of 53 players on the active roster. In college, teams can reach almost 100 players. In basketball, the NBA teams can have 13 players active in a game. What's that all about? There are only 5 able to play at any one time, and the game only lasts 48 minutes. I'm willing to let the whole team names thing go because it wasn't your fault that you didn't embrace football as the rest of the world did, and so when a new team is formed or calls itself something like Inter Miami or Atlanta United, it doesn't sound anything other than silly to me. As for the other leagues and team names, such as Hornets, Mavericks, Seahawks, Buccaneers and Packers, at least they've become established and sound okay. Whilst I'm on my soapbox, why oh why do you have to put a go in front of everything? Go Seahawks, go Packers, go Hornets. I know the USA consider themselves to be the world police, and therefore it would seem logical they should be able to do the same with sport. But what's with the flagrant arrogance from Americans in sport? Not lowering the Olympic flag, your teams at events such as the Olympics, overseas fans supporting teams, etc., etc. Some say it's confidence, but others, as I say, might see it as arrogance. I'm sure that all the changes US sport has been through, in the first instance, is quite well-meaning, maybe to cater for the audience that's watching. I don't want to say the whole thing is dumbed down, but for sure the sport itself isn't the main entertainment anymore. But I do know it is entertainment, and I realise that media have a massive hold and significant influence over the sport nowadays. I know most of my frustrations with American sport would be alleviated if they would just get on with the game. There would be no need for kiss cams or halftime shows, shots for a million, cheerleaders, which celebrities are in the house, or whatever the show. I would do away with all the breaks for adverts and the wasted time. But then less money will be made and people in charge will have you believe the whole product is about entertainment, even if it comes at a price. Is the world of sport doomed? I don't think so. Am I just getting long in the tooth and I get annoyed at anything nowadays? Those that know me know I am frustrated by most things. Maybe I am completely out of touch and the USA have got it right. What do you think? You can let me know in the comments and I will reply back to you. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it as interesting as I have done in the researching and making of it. I have many other similar films for you on my channel, all related somehow to sport. So head across there and check them out. As ever, I would really appreciate the thumbs up and the subscription if you haven't already subscribed. And please spread the word to anyone you know about my films. Finally, you might be stuck for ideas on what to buy someone for a present. Interested in Sport is the 5-star rated book with thousands of the best sports facts and jokes. Who wouldn't want that for a birthday or Christmas present?